Okay, hey Cindy. I see
Hello,
I see Sebastian and Jellybean on the far side of their
on the
house.
left there. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's hard to see that we can see the green, but the red markings on their head are kind of hidden. They're being very coy. They look very similar. Are they the same species of jellybean? Are they the same species of jelly bean? Wow.
Yeah.
No, are they the same species of conure?
They are not. So Sebastian is a mitered. They're very close, but a little bit different. Sebastian's a mitered and Jellybean is a cherry head.
So despite the fact that they're different species, they're pretty similar and they seem to get along very well. Tell us who's who.
Okay, so Sebastian is the one who just got back on the perch there. He is the mitered. He was a pet, and he came to Mickaboo because his owner abandoned him when he could no longer take care of him. He just left him one day when he had a routine medical appointment. So that's when he came to Mickaboo. And then Jellybean is the one who's still hanging on there. And he is a cherry head. He is actually, we believe, he's one of the, he was rescued at one point. We believe he was one of the Telegraph Hill Conures. And so this story is pretty unique because they both met at the vets and they had a cage next to each other. And over time, they became buddies. And then they introduced them to the same cage and they bonded. So they became really best friends, both being at the vet.
So they're what we would call a bonded pair then, which means that they have a strong relationship and we would want to adopt them up to the same home so that they can maintain that relationship. Let's start with some conure basics. What do these guys eat? What's their basic diet and what are some favorites?
Okay, so these guys eat the Harrison's large pepper pellets, and they also eat the Lefever's Avy cakes and fruits and vegetables. They're actually really good, and they're not that picky about, they're really good about eating their pellets, and they like all kinds of different fruits and vegetables, green beans and blueberries and apple pieces and carrots and corn. And so they're really great in terms of already being on a really good diet.
That's awesome. You mentioned, so they're eating well and they like different types of fruits and veggies. You mentioned that they met at the vet. Do either of them have a medical condition that would require special care?
No. So no, they're actually very healthy. They've not been to the vet in quite a while. They're very healthy. And the only thing is that Sebastian, it doesn't require any attention, but the only thing to be noted is he's missing the tips of some of his toes, and one of his feet is a little bit lame. But as you can see, he gets along in a normal cage and normal perches just fine. Every so often, once in a blue moon, he'll try to do something and he'll fall. But he's great. He just like I said, he's missing, but he doesn't need any ongoing care. Neither one of them needs any medication or any kind of ongoing care.
That's great. So I'm guessing that they were at the vet when they both were brought in, one having been neglected for a while and the other being required, then they needed care, then they're okay now. So
right, and they were being boarded at the vet. They were perfectly healthy, but they needed a foster home, and that's how they ended up with me.
Ah, wonderful. And how are they with people? How do they do? Do they step up? Do they like to interact with people? Do they prefer to be sort of ambient birds in the background?
So Jellybean is not tame. He'll come. They'll both come out of their cages, but he likes to kind of hang on the periphery, so he will not step up. He's a little bit scared still of people. Sebastian he likes to fly over and sit on you, but you have to just be a little careful because he likes to nip. So you have to just, I usually will just put a towel on me, and he'll come and he'll sit on me on the towel, and then he'll preen. And wherever he goes, when he goes out, Jellybean comes out, and then when he goes back in the cage, I'll take a towel and he'll go on my arm, and I'll just put him back in the cage, and then Jellybean will go in the cage after him usually as well.
Nice. So tell us a little about what makes each one unique. You said, Sebastian's a little shyer.
Jellybean's a little shyer.
Jellybean's a little
So
shyer.
Jellybean, right, because Jellybean was the wild Telegraph Hill bird. And
Right
Sebastian,
now, which
again,
one is
like he,
Jellybean? Sorry, right, just so that we can
Jellybean,
track.
yeah, Jellybean is he's the cherry head who's on the corner there. And then
Okay,
Sebastian
Jellybean's
is the one
corner.
that's on the door who's missing the toes.
Got it. And you can sort of see that. Yeah. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so I'm sorry, we were saying, a little
Yeah,
bit
so
about.
actually they're a really great. I mean, they're just really fun to have around. So they actually like a lot of ambient attention. They get a little time out now and then in one room. One of the things they like to do, I mean, they're just so cute together, and they'll preen each other and they'll play with each other. And as you can see, that you might be able to see, they like that toy with the bells, and they like their wood toys. And one of the things they really love is when I wheel the cage outside on the porch during the sunny days, and they love to just go in their water bowl, and just get both sopping wet. Like I'll pour water in a few times, because one will go in and splash, and the other one will go in and splash, and they'll just end up both sopping wet, and they just love it. And then they'll just sit there and kind of preen each other, and they just have the best time. And they're really pretty happy birds. And they don't need they like a lot more they like the ambient attention so they don't need a lot of like one-on-one attention, really, because they have each other, and they really they're just a really happy pair.
So you use the term ambient attention, and I just want to share with our readers, we talk about different types of attention that birds need. And ambient attention is just sort of, they like being in the same space with you, but aren't needing you to be specifically over and paying attention directly to them. And these guys are therefore low intensity in terms of how much one-on-one interaction they need, and they're really happy that way. They're sharing a cage. About how big is their cage? What are their living arrangements? What do they need as far as that?
Yeah, so the living area of their space is 32 inches wide, 22 inches deep, and 40 inches high.
Cool. That's pretty specific. So that's a good sized house, but they're not.
Yeah, with about a 1 inch bar spacing on the cage. Yeah, because they spend a good amount of time in the cage. I mean, they do get a little bit of time outside, and so they need a nice cage, and they'll flap like. They'll go on the corner and just flap their wings and stuff inside their cage, and so they really need a good sized cage for roaming around in.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned bar spacing. Again, for our viewers, bar spacing is really important for the safety of the birds, because if the bar spacing is too big and they can get a head through the bars, they can get stuck or think that they're stuck and really badly injure themselves. Thank you for bringing that up, Cindy. So because of the biting and shyness, I'm guessing that they probably wouldn't do real well in a home with young children. Would you tend to?
Oh no, I would not recommend. Yeah, I would not recommend children.
And the other question is, we could hear them a little bit, and Conures have the rep for being kind of loud. How loud are they, and during what parts of the day do they get loud, if they do?
Okay. Yeah, so they actually, yes, they can get very loud, as you may know. If you do hear any of the wild ones in San Francisco, their sound does travel. So I definitely do not recommend them as an apartment bird. However, they are not loud at all. They have their times, like maybe in the mornings and in the afternoon, and if they get excited, like if somebody's out blowing the yard or something, they'll crank it. They'll start shrieking a bit. But most of the time they're pretty quiet, and then at night they're not loud at all. So when they go to bed, they're quiet.
Awesome. So in our last few minutes, what else would you like to share with potential adopters about life with Sebastian and Jellybean?
Well, I would say one thing is that they, in terms of taking care of them, they have one water bowl and 2 food bowls, and the food bowls are equal food in both bowls, and that's just so otherwise they'll fight over the food. But if you give them each their own bowl, that they're great. And as I mentioned, you know, even though Sebastian has some issues with his feet, he's perfectly good in a normal cage, so that's great. They're not clipped right now, and as I mentioned, they, you know, they're very, you know, they're just fun to be around. They're great energy, and they're just a, you know, a lovely pair of birds. Oh, the other thing I should probably mention is their age. Sebastian's about 20, Jellybean's about 10, and they get to be, miters get to be about 30, and cherryheads get to be about 25.
Got it. So they have quite a few good years ahead of them. Cindy, thank you so
Oh,
much
yes.
for sharing these two with us. And I think we'll be talking soon about another pair of birds. Wonderful. Thank you.
Great.